Hey, welcome to the after show with the Mad Dog and Cole, the Beermeister Farrell.
Reno. Reno is the Mexico of Tahoe.
I decided to fly through the air and live in the sunlight and enjoy life as much as I could, and that's just what I'm doing.
Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm. What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure? Stay calm. Wait.
Man, oh man, those inspiring words from Mr. Evil Knievel never get old. We should all take time to live in the sunlight and enjoy life. We don't have to all fly through the air, but if we choose to, we should always have our first responders there, huh, Cole?
Absolutely. We've had a absolute biblical amount of rain here in Southern California, and our first responders have been working triple overtime. So we are so grateful here at the after show for our first responders, as well as our active and retired military and their families. Thank you. Thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts. You allow us to do this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Deep respect for our first responders, our active and retired military, and the families of those MIA and KIA who gave all. Thank you so much. While we're thanking people, how about thanking Kicker Performance Audio? Man, you can find them at kicker.com, on Instagram at Kicker Audio, on Facebook at Kicker. All your 12-volt needs, whether it's your truck, car, sandrail, motorcycle, dude, they have some great new killer kits for Harleys. Direct fit, bolt in, plug and play, super badass. I was watching it on Unmasked Live last night. Bunch of new products. And we're going to talk about one of the new products in just a second, but we're going to get on to Bomber Eyewear, Bomber Floating Eyewear, Bomber Safety Eyewear. They float. Tommy and his gang are so committed to be the blue jeans of sunglasses, reasonably priced so you can own 20 pairs. I own 18. BomberEyewear.com, on Instagram at Bomber Eyewear. Man, over 40 frame styles, and I don't even know how many lens combinations. Lately, I have been going with the safety lens in the dark smoke polarized white frame boogie bomb, and I have been loving these. They're great at the track too.
They look cool and they're classy.
Yeah, thank you so much. Of course, the Premix podcast and our boy Cole sharing his passion for all things desert racing through the lens of his camera. Find him on Instagram at the Premix podcast and book that beautiful voice for your next event, whether it's announcing or MC. He's got you covered. Hit him up, slide into his DMs on Instagram, the at symbol THEPREMIXPODCAST at the Premix podcast. Of course, Kelsey Morrell Film. You'll notice that a lot of our social media video clips are looking much cleaner and much better. And that is great thanks to the editing process of Kelsey at Kelsey Morrell Film, plus getting all of our YouTube and YouTube podcast stuff ready to be launched, which will launch next week.
Wow.
Check her out on Instagram at Kelsey Morrell Film. And of course, you watch our Instagram stories on AFTR_podcast. You will notice we have some really cool templates. Those are compliments of Hey Keeks Marketing. Whether you need a website built or your social media built or maintained, yell, "Hey Keeks." Find her on the web, heykeeks.com, on Instagram at Hey Keeks Marketing, all one word. Dude, I'm excited. We have a goodie.
We have a Grady.
Yes, truly a Grady. Man, when we said this was going to be a goodie, here is Mr. Goody, Uncle Sethro. Seth Fargher. How are you, brother?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Thanks for letting me
Yeah.
come on and hang out and reminisce about the glory days of years gone by.
Dude, and that's what we want to hit, man. And thank you. I know you're out on East Coast time, and really appreciate you accommodating us on time frame. Unfortunately, Cole has a real stupid job. I mean, a stupid real job. So we kind of got to work within his time frame, because otherwise literally nothing happens on this podcast. If Cole doesn't touch it, because otherwise it's just me talking to a black screen.
It's all right.
So,
Everyone, the body has many parts and all play a necessary role. And you know what? We can pivot and make things happen.
yeah, absolutely, man. I'm super grateful to have you on. And man, I don't know, Cole, have you did you actually do Statman for this?
I didn't do Statman. I just have the memories. So
All
we're going to have
right.
to roll with the
So
punches on this one.
The
So-
memories.
The
here we
memories.
go. For those of you who don't know who the Seth Fargher is, Cole, fill us in. Give us a little history.
Gosh,
Photographer,
I'm
writer,
excited to hear this.
overall nice guy, quad
sure.
legend, freestyle innovator, father. What else do you need?
Yeah, man. Seth. So like all the way from freestyle quads and really one of the first, in the early days, in the film days and all that, to now taking all of your background in motorsports and your history in media and your talents, and like activating it into like your current company, construction video pros, which we'll get to. But holy cow, what a trip, dude. So start us off. Like, what lit the spark to begin with?
Man, I would say November 29th, 1989 was my third birthday, and I got a 1989 Suzuki LT50 for my third birthday.
Nice.
And that was literally the spark that started it all. I actually, for kicks, was going back through my old home videos of my kids, because I have an LT50 for them now.
Nice.
And was showing videos of me jumping it off a log at 4 or 5 years old. I found this log camping that you could pin it at, and if you hit it hard enough, it'd kick the front wheels up enough to hit it with the back wheels. And I was probably 5 by that time, but I just remember loving to jump, loving to ride. And that was my first love. And so I always wanted to ride and jump. I grew up in Central Oregon, which, as you well know, there's not much of the moto or off-road industry scene in the Pacific
Correct.
Northwest. There's wonderful places to ride, but not much by ways of the company. So I would
Yep.
say mid 90s, whenever Krusty Demons came out, and like many people that saw Seth Enslow and his mega and like amazing infamous jump at the Dumont Dunes, I loved his story of packing his truck and moving to Temecula and just going where the stuff was happening. And I don't know, I was in the 4th grade or 5th grade or something. Can't believe that my parents actually let me watch Krusty's one. They probably didn't know, but that kind of became the goal, I guess you could say, or a pipe dream, whatever. And there's a whole lot that went from there to the next like 10, 15 years. I mean, shortly then after, Wes Miller, who
Yep.
he started doing the same thing essentially that the Krusty guys were doing, but on the ATV side. I remember when we bought Huevos One, we were on our way to the Oregon Dunes to go ride at Sand Lake for the weekend. And we stopped at a shop to pick up some stuff. Like, oh, this VHS tape, Huevos One, it's a four-wheeler video. That's awesome. And I wore that thing out. Um, and it's amazing because I'm still Pacific Northwest, Oregon, started following the industry, lived through magazines. I remember reading articles by Bill WBGO Landfear, God
Yep.
rest his soul. When I was little, back then it was 3 and 4 wheel ATV action. It wasn't UTV action or ATV and UTV action. It was 3 and 4 wheel action.
Yep.
And WBGO was the guy. To watching Huevos 3 when Dana Creech, your friend and mine, made his big appearance, and just living in awe. I mean, the internet didn't exist back then, so you had Wes's VHS Huevos movies, and that was everything I wanted. I actually remember telling my mom as a sophomore in high school, if I could, I would get my GED, drop out of high school, and go travel around the country racing four-wheelers. Little did I know that you don't really make money racing four-wheelers, but I thought it was a nice idea. For time's sake, I'll punt ahead. I ended up graduating from high school still with this dream of going to California, but instead I did the sensible thing and I went to college and studied accounting. And tried playing college football. No, that was a necessary step in I think my journey, and it was good. It prepared me in a lot of ways. But I felt the Lord calling me to go play football, and no idea what I was going to do, but I pretty much abandoned any hope or dream or idea of the motorsports world. Pretty much figured I'd get out of there and I'd be a banker.
Right.
Which I did. And if you can remember, 2008 was a phenomenal time to get into banking. But after college, actually it was February of my senior year, I went to the Indy Dealer Expo, back when it was in Indianapolis, and I sent
Right.
Jared Kelly, the editor of ATV Sports Magazine, an email and said, hey, I'm about to graduate from college. I really want to be involved in the power sports world. How better than to write for a magazine, because you guys know everybody. He actually responded and he set up a meeting with his publisher. And I showed up there, not in a suit, but in like slacks and a collared shirt, way overdressed, just to network. And I'm a scrapper. I'm a go for it. Like my dad's sayings is, you don't ask, you don't get. So why not try? And so I literally went with copies of my resume to run around and ask people, like, can I come work for you? I'll sleep on a couch and push a broom around a shop floor just to be at the races on the weekend. And what's hysterical, and Lauren, I don't know how much of the ATV side of things you know, but as I was in the line for registration, Doug Gust, the legendary Digger Doug, was in
Yep.
line behind me. And I can remember, and I've met him several times since, and we laugh about it now. And he might not even remember me or this exchange, but I'm literally in line going, Doug Gust is behind you. You have to say something to him, but he's going to think you're an idiot. And I'm like, but you came here to network. That's what you're doing. So I turn around and I stick my hand out and I say, hi, Doug, my name's Seth. I'm trying to get a job in the industry. You're connected with Suzuki. And he recommend or something. And I tripped over myself. And the funny thing is, all of my life living outside the world, you idolize people in an industry. You come to think that people are like gods and kings. And then when you get into it, you realize things like Doug flies a crop duster for a living, or runs a construction company, or, all the people you see on TV in the X Games that 1 week a year actually don't make much money, or they just hope that they make money that 1 week a year. And the rest of the year, they're scrapping together, living out of vans, riding demos or whatever. And so, but nonetheless, at Indy, I went around and I met I met so many professional ATV riders and the whole factory, Suzuki team, and all kind of stuff. And Jared let me write an article, actually from your stomping ground, Central Oregon. I did an article on the Christmas Valley sand dunes as my first foray into power sports journalism. And they printed it. They paid me $300. I was
Nice.
stoked.
Yeah.
And I rode a bone stock Z400 out there with no paddles and just thrashed the crap out of it. But they loved it. They didn't give me a job, but Jared contacted me a few months later and said, "Hey, we would let you be one of our resident experts for this thing called the ATV Mag blog, and you can write about whatever you want." So that was probably kind of my in to
Nice.
start hustling. I reached out to Caleb Moore, freestyle extraordinaire, through Facebook and said, "Hey, I write for this website. Could I get an interview?" And he was like, "Sure." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, Caleb Moore is going to talk to me." I did the same thing with Dustin Wimmer, the reigning Suzuki ATV national champion.
Yep.
And yeah, so that was my foray into the media. And in tandem with that, I was also trying to get in on the freestyle side. So while I'm doing that, I had also met a guy from Central Oregon named Justin Homan. He
Mhm.
was one of the original Metal Militia guys that nobody's ever heard of, but
Yep.
you know him from your neck of the woods.
Correct.
I started following him around the Pacific Northwest, filming him and his guys. And in exchange, he gave me one of his first freestyle ramps, which was very sketchy. It was only 4 feet wide and it had rotted plywood on it. And me and a buddy named Todd Walter, I owe so much gratitude to Todd because he's a master fabricator and he helped me weld little 1 foot square tube extensions all the way up this ramp. And we sheeted it with plywood. And for extra grip, I put sand or some kind of grip stuff on the plywood.
Rad.
And on Valentine's Day, gosh, this is so much fun, you guys. Thank you. Because my word, the memories. I'm a father of 4 and I drive a minivan now. So this is good for my soul to do this. Valentine's Day 2009. I dug that ramp and trailer out of the snow because it had snowed. And that was the day that we'd finally set up and found a spot we could set it up and I could finally hit it. And my other buddy I'm indebted to, named Jamie Smith, he is a Hollywood stunt guy, master craftsman extraordinaire. He stunt drives for he's done stuff with Travis Pastrana and Toyota commercials and stuff. Rad guy. He came out and helped me shovel the landing, finish bolting down the plywood, and we took it out and hucked it for the first time. And that was game changing. Like that was the first day hitting ramps, and I think we backed it up to about 45 or 50 feet by the end of the day. And
that was my next question.
it was how far?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we found a shelf that was cut off like this, and so I parked the ramp right up to it, so it's basically a tabletop, and I just jumped until I was at about 20 feet, and it had a bank right here, and so we backed it up and turned it. So I wasn't landing on it. I was landing like this. So it wasn't a flat safe landing, but it was better than nothing. And there's an ATV sport article that I took photos that day about Freestyle 101 and have photos from that day. And yeah, it was monumental. And then about a week later, took the ramp out to a different location, supposedly with a better landing. And I went over the bars, knocked myself out and cartwheeled. There's a very, very grainy video somewhere on Facebook of me sticking it and cartwheeling and just the next so that was February of 2009, and I moved to California in October of 2009, which doesn't seem like a very long time, but it was those months were success was one step forward, two steps backward, one steps
Yeah.
forward. Um, so yeah, uh, I feel like I've been talking for a while. Do you guys have any questions or statements on like that's the trajectory? That's how I got it, and that was the journey to California.
Yeah. And then, I know a little bit about the California side, but you basically just packed everything up and moved to California, and no real firm plans or anything, right? I mean, true early freestyle form. We're just
Well,
gonna go ride and
yes, the challenge was when I did it. By the time I did it, ATV freestyle was on the decline. And so I was about 15 years too late. But so I was working at a bank, and all the while that I'm riding the janky first ramp that Justin gave me, and I'm incredibly indebted for, um, I met a guy named Tony Kuva at the Oregon Dune Fest
yep.
and told him I'm a wannabe freestyle guy. Could you guys give me shocks? Because he was working for Elka.
Elka, yes.
And he said, no, but you need to meet this guy, BC Vaught, who I knew exactly who BC was because
Right.
I idolized the Bomb Squad. And I still have somewhere in my cabinet, I still have Tony's Elka Shocks card with BC's name and number handwritten on the backside.
Wow.
How cool.
So I
BC
called,
is a big friend of the show. He listens
yeah,
to every
I
episode.
love it. Well, shout out BC. We got to hang.
Yeah.
Um, so I called BC, and at this point, I'm a wannabe freestyle guy. That's you know, my success rate is not real high. Working at a bank by day, um, and he sends me ramp plans and says, "Look, if you want to do this, you need to be able to build this ramp and jump it at 70 feet or 72 feet or whatever, and then we'll talk." And so I go back to my awesome buddy Todd, who's a UPS driver by day, and for like 3 months or 4 months, we leave work, we come home. His saintly wife Melissa was pregnant and would come out to the shop in tears and be like, I was not a nice friend back then because we're just like grinding on getting this ramp done, and she's like, husband, you're neglecting me. And it was not good. So I'm sorry, Todd and Melissa. I'm grateful that you guys are still happily married.
Hey, I
Um,
don't feel bad. I've been that friend for a lot of people, huh, Cole?
Oh yeah, no, and still are to this day in a good way.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we push people.
so we built that ramp. It was amazing. Crashed and ended up in the hospital the day that I overjumped it. In fact, you can't see it, but since I went to the dentist today, I still have stainless steel on a tooth right there from that jump in 2009.
Wow.
My dentist always laughs because a bolt went through my lip and the stainless steel on the clutch perch embedded
Ooh,
in my tooth. Um, and had another concussion and just all this stuff. But eventually I got it dialed a little bit enough to where I told BC I wanted to come to California and that I would do anything, shoot, edit photos, content, whatever. And I was sitting in the break room at the bank one day, and Wes called me and was like, "So what is it you want to do?" And at the end of the call, he was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And so that was a Thursday. I walked down, resigned from my job, and was in my truck headed to California the following Monday. Um, I had a tent, my TRX 450, which is still in my garage here in North Carolina.
nice.
I had the tent until about 2 months ago. It finally gave out. A toolbox and a sleeping bag in case living with Wes didn't work out. And I drove to Southern California the whole way dreaming about what amazing things were going to happen and how I was going to be a superstar freestyle motocross rider and all kinds of things that never quite materialized. But I met the guys at Dumont Dunes where they were filming for the last segment of Huevos 12,
Wow.
and that was it. I pulled into Baker, California, with the bomb squad rig, and Wes was sitting there with his ginormous dog Saki, who ended up spooning me that night, and I thought I was going to die because she's a giant. And I met Caleb and Colton and Thomas Brown and Nick Hickey and J.R. Hines and all the fellas. And that was the beginning of it.
Wow.
What bravery to load up the truck and quit a reliable job, right? And go send it, which is at the time you look back and it's, if you're going to do it, that was the time to do it, right? Not living on the other side of the country with 4 kids and a lovely wife. So, it still took a lot of courage for you to do that.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. One comment about your stable job. Like I said, banking wasn't stable. In fact, that bank failed about 3 months after I left.
See, you left and they failed.
See, right? I guess so.
Yeah. Well, but the other side of it is the courage it takes to be that aggressively after your dream. Like kudos. I mean, you're like one of the nicest guys on the planet, one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And yet you've got that dig, right? That saber-toothed tiger bite into what you want and working to get there. And I admire that, man. It takes a lot of dig to get to where you were then and to get to where you are now. And that's super admirable.
Well, I appreciate that. It's taught me a lot, and I'm grateful for it. And the Lord has been gracious because I felt for sure when I left and put everything that I wanted on hold to go play college at some podunk school in Illinois, that I was for sure saying goodbye to any of those dreams. And yet the Lord gave me back everything I ever could have possibly imagined and so much more, because I never could have dreamed. And I have had so many, like, holy crap, I'm actually fill in the blank moments.
Right.
Like a month after I moved to California with Wes and BC and the crew, I went to the Baja 1000 with Wayne Matlock and Harold Goodman and Josh Castor and their whole crew. Like the number one factory Honda ATV racing team. And I'm literally sitting at a table that's like a mile long with all their families, and Wayne and Kristen have their kids there. Wyatt, I think was his name, had just been born, and Wayne's parents are there. And I don't think Wayne's dad is still around anymore. And I'm just sitting here going like, I'm in Ensenada, Mexico with like all these like legends of the sport that I used to read about in magazines. And I've had that experience. I met Seth Enslow and the Flesh Wound Films guys. They were filming some promo at Wes's house right after I moved there. And they had like this piece of plywood they doused with gas and lit on fire. Seth was standing in front of it saying something, they were advertising their Australia tour. And like I rode Ocotillo Wells with Mike Metzger on my 4-wheeler. They're like, who's this guy on a quad? And I got to basically shadow him and be his personal photographer for the day. And I met Metz through that. And like the number of people that I watched on TV or in magazines and movies and have been blessed to rub elbows with or hang out with, like is mind boggling to me. And I look at that as nothing short than just God's gracious kindness, because he doesn't owe that to me at all. But he was willing to give me that opportunity because I said no to something at their time to wait. And I was better off. I was more mature, I hope anyway. And I was better equipped to handle it. And yeah, man, it's just unbelievable, the experiences that I got to have and things I got to do and relationships I have because of it.
Yeah, and you have done coverage. So from that, I mean, you did media stuff, plus you still weren't you on the last Huevos movie? Weren't you
No.
in it?
And Wes, I am a little bit, if Wes listens, I'm a little bitter but so his argument was, well, you're on like a bone stock Honda, it doesn't look very good or something like that. And so I didn't get featured in Huevos 12 because I was still new and whatever. It's totally
Right.
fine. But he did give me a tiny little bit of FaceTime, and I think I made the credits when they came out with more Huevos like a year later.
Yeah.
That was like a farewell tour for Caleb and Colton or something, and it was highlighting their snowmobile stuff. There was that they showed the Dumont scene, and they showed a group shot, and it had all our names pop up, and I was in it. I don't think there was actually a clip of me riding, and then somewhere there is an actual bomb squad poster, and my name was listed on it. And what's
Nice.
ironic about that, I never saw that till I was in an ICU in Texas.
Oh,
So my actual freestyle career, I moved to California in October of 2009. Marco Picado,
Yep.
who is now riding I just saw a video on Instagram. He was on the Nitro Circus with Travis Pastrana. I think he jumped and crashed. It might have been somebody else. I think it was Marco at the Morse place. And they were supposed to go on a little monster truck freestyle tour. So I got the call. BC called me. I'd been living in California, just practicing and training. He's like, your number's called. You're going to Texas. And I'm like, holy crap. I land in Texas, and Caleb and Colton are thrashing to load up for their very first X Games to go shock the world at Aspen. I show up, and I'm supposed to ride a bike I've never ridden, off a ramp I've never ridden, and then get in a truck and go ride a tour with Dylan Mason. And I overjumped my first jump and smacked my head on the handlebars and split my forehead open. But managed to, and I had to work on the bike too, because something that, if it was Marco, whoever it was, had crashed it. So I had to fix an A-arm and a tie rod or something and then go jump. And I split my forehead open, but was able to ride it out, figure that out. The Moors leave for Aspen, leave me at their house in Crum, Texas. And again, I was watching them and Caleb learn to do backflips from my dorm room in college. So here I am at like the bomb squads area and stuff.
Right.
And I drove Caleb's truck around Denton, Texas, and went to 3 different urgent cares trying to find one that would take my insurance and stitch my forehead. And none of them would. So I settled for some butterfly Band-Aids from Rite Aid. And I ended up back at their house. And it must have been a few days before we went on that tour, because I watched their first performance at the Winter X Games from their couch in Crum, Texas.
Wow.
And it was one of those moments like, here I grew up idolizing Caleb and Colton, who are both like 5 or more years younger than me. And I'm watching them at X Games from their living room. I went on a like 3-week tour around the South with Dylan, and we were a sideshow at a monster truck rally, but it was awesome. Got to ride some freestyle shows. I danced the cha-cha slide in front of about 2,000 people in Augusta, Georgia. The kids loved it. I don't know about anybody else, but the kids were clapping and having a good time. And then in July, I was back at the Moore's house, supposed to practice into the foam pit, and never even got to the foam pit. I was just out riding one morning, and I apparently tried to do a front flip, and I stuck the nose of the quad in the ground on the top of the landing and just cartwheeled. And so that was July 10th, 2010. And yeah, so I went over the bars. My thighs hit the bars so hard that it bent the steering stem and also ripped it out of the nut that's at the bottom of it.
Wow.
I had matching bruises on both thighs, which I thank my high school football coach, because if I hadn't done so many leg exercises, I probably would have broken both femurs.
Yeah.
So there was that. My head went into the ground because the front of my helmet was cracked and the face was folded in. It was bent on both sides.
Whew.
Oh, I got fireworks. Look at that.
Whoa.
that's what you were seeing when you hit the ramp.
That's what I was seeing. Yep.
Yeah.
And that pushed it up, and the quad flipped, and the grab bar of it caught me in the back of the head, like a half an inch from my spine and fractured my skull.
Oof.
And so Caleb and Colton took me to the oh look out. Caleb and Colton took me to the hospital. I didn't come to for about 2 hours. I was coherent and talking to them. They said the only reason they took me to the hospital was because I was bleeding out my ear. But I
Whoa.
I didn't remember anything until the second ambulance ride. I remember
Wow.
waking up and asking the paramedic what his name was and then throwing up. And then I blacked out again and woke up in an emergency room at a different hospital. And Caleb and Colton were sitting there talking to me and laughing because I asked them something and they started laughing. And I was like, have I said that already? They said only about 30 or 40 times. And that's my tell from high school football days. I repeat myself. I ask the same questions over and over and over. And so I actually remember coming to that started a 10-day stint in ICU. My parents flew to Texas. BC came. BC brought me some chicken tenders and a malt, a blackberry malt from some famous Texas malt place. BC, yeah, I want to know if you remember this, if you listen to this. And I puked it all up that night in ICU, all over myself. Um, but yeah, and so this is the gnarliness and why the experiences I've had are I'm so grateful for. So I finally got out of the hospital, skull fracture, arm in a sling because I had a broken scapula. I needed to get back to California and I couldn't fly. So I got on a train by myself and rode a train back to LA. And the X Games were going on. So I met BC and Wes and Caleb and Colton and JR and Cynthia Prefontaine. Don't know if you guys know her from up in Canada.
Mm-mm.
And we all went and did the X Games. Like I never even went home. I'm still arm in the sling. I've got photos of like the five of us out on the beach and we went to X Games and Pastrana did this isn't the double backflip year, it's like the following year, but he was doing the double backflip in his freestyle run and it was just like insane. Um I went inside the Staples Center and sat next to Ronnie Feist, the Metal
Yep.
Militia OG, and I had met him previously. We met through a church and we actually played in a band together for a period of time. It's another insane thing. I was at Feist's house
That's right.
playing guitar and he's playing a drum set. So I sat with him and we watched the best trick contest and watched some guys like absolutely destroy themselves. Scott Murray, the double backflip guy that would wear a hockey jersey and work gloves. No, he wasn't there that year. It was Paris Rosin tried a front flip
Oh,
but I watched all that. And so I hadn't even gone home yet. I finally stayed at BC's parents' house, his mom and stepdad's house where my truck was, and drove to Glen Helen. Still didn't even make it back, but there was a company trying to make a race ready ATV called US Highland. I don't know if either of you guys ever even heard of it.
Mm-mm. Have not.
It's a really sad story. Like they were building like a true race ready ATV and like all of their executives died in a plane crash.
oh no.
Oh,
Like, yeah, that's unfortunately that's what everyone remembers about them. But I went by like a press intro where they were going to let people ride this pretty sick sport ATV. And James Stewart was out there that day ripping on the track. And had I not been in a sling, I could have gotten on the track on that bike and ridden around and James Stewart would have blown by me, but I could have said, "Hey, I rode with James Stewart." So
right.
instead, I was just out there taking pictures. And so like yeah, after that I finally made it back home. But between ICU and the train ride was X Games LA and hanging out with all those guys and then that press intro thing, a stop at Glen Helen. Um and then that was after that was okay, I've got a skull fracture and all this stuff and it's time to put the pieces back together and figure out what's next.
That's man, that's crazy. I mean, just, all that. I mean, just crazy. And, you know, I mean, I know a lot of freestyle guys, and that is, I mean, you were you were you were spared for a reason for sure, because there's unfortunately, we've lost a lot of friends in freestyles, and
Yeah.
it's definitely anytime you're doing freestyle, whether it's a quad, a snowmobile, a bike, a snow bike, a Harley, like my friend Scotty's doing now. I mean, you're putting like, you're 100% putting your life out there. So, you know, um, that's like kudos. But then that was kind of for you, I think, if I remember right, that was kind of your wake up call. You're like, okay, I got to do something else.
Yeah. So following that, um, I really had a lot of people that supported me in my little venture in California. I literally survived for months off of doing articles for I think his name was Jeremy Bratcher, All Terrain Research. They were doing some pretty cool UTV custom stuff before everybody else was. Unfortunately, they were ahead of their time. They built one of the first ramps that Caleb backflipped a razor with.
Wow.
And I literally, he saw that content had a place. And so he was paying me to write articles and stuff. And so I was doing all that. That kept me afloat. I would periodically do something for a magazine or a website here or there. And then after the crash, I actually ended up, needed a job. Um, and I went out and pounded the pavement. I drove a 1979 Chevy pickup truck to California. That was my truck and my daily driver. And I drove that thing around and made like 10 or 12 stops around Southern California, film places, marketing companies, and walked in as like, I need a job. This is what I'm doing. I had a tie on and slacks. And towards the end of the day, driving through downtown Temecula, my truck broke down.
Oh,
And I
no.
remember sitting there on the sidewalk in front of it going like, this sucks. Like the plans to do freestyle didn't work out. Um, I can't even get a job to save my life. And then my truck broke down. I ended up getting a job doing some video work for a company. And for a little while, for 6 months, I was working part time for this video production company and part time for an insurance guy, who I'm still connected with and chat with on LinkedIn periodically. His name was Mike Stromso. Um, and so between the two of those, and then that's how I got connected with DWT.
Hmm.
Um, I had met Lenny and Lauren Duncan from Duncan Racing at the Sand Sports Super Show. And I told them that I had a 1991 LT250R wasting away in Central Oregon that someday I wanted to have them do a build on. And Lauren was like, well, where is it? I said, it's in Central Oregon. He said, well, if you can get it here, let's talk about what we do. And I was like, bro, I'm unemployed and I don't have a dime to my name. I'll find a way to get it here and I'll help get sponsors and I'll do some media coverage for it, but I can't pay you anything. And they were like, that's fine. So I talked to Jeff Stambaugh, a UTV racer from Seattle area, a mutual friend of Tim Shellman.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. TPQ.
and Jeff picked it up in Central Oregon and brought it to Mesquite, Nevada to a works race. And I drove over there in my 79 Chevy pickup, picked it up and brought it back and dropped it off in San Diego. And Lenny and Lauren went through it and made that thing mint and cherry as could be. And it actually ended up on the cover of Dirt Wheels.
Wow.
When
And
was that?
that would have been 2010 or 11.
I think I have
So
that Dirt Wheels in my storage up in
I love
Central
it.
Oregon.
I love it. Yeah. I ended up selling the bike. I'm regretting it, but I got 4 kids and no space. So some things have just had to go. But in a Facebook group, I would post about it periodically. When I sold it, some guy was like, dude, I still have that dirt wheels. You should put that thing in a heated room and rub it with a diaper. And I'm like, be my guest. You got $5,000?
Yeah, right.
So, um, but I needed a test rider to ride it so I could take photos for an article for Harlan Foley at ATV Riders.
Yeah.
I don't even know if ATV Riders is still around, but Harlan was one of the people that also gambled on me early on and let me do some articles and make a name. Well, not make a name, but put my name in print, so to speak. And I reached out to Dylan Zimmerman through Facebook, who was a factory Can-Am rider. And because he was a factory Can-Am guy, he was like, well, my dad, who was the general manager of DWT, Ty Zimmerman, and the manager of the Moto Works DWT Can-Am team, said, well, he wants to talk to you just about sponsor stuff. And he basically said, like, yeah, it's cool that he does it, but people can't know that it's him because he's a Can-Am. And I was like, that's
Right.
fine. So I guess I'm spilling the beans now. But I got to hang out. We shot it at Kahia, however you pronounce it, with Ty and Dylan, and that opened up a door that ultimately led. So I was telling Ty, like, hey, I'm working at an insurance office. Like, if you guys have any openings, let me know.
Right.
And they ended up calling me like a month later. Their trackside sales rep, Rick Willison, had torn his ACL, and they needed their fifth wheel trailer full of DWT was the title sponsor of the ATV National Motocross Series that year. That would have been 2011. And they needed it in Washington, Georgia, like ASAP. And so I got a call and I was like, heck yeah. And I drove the truck and trailer across the country and picked Rick up at the Augusta airport. And on crutches, he hobbled to the track, and from his chair kind of taught me everything I needed to know. And then I flew back to California after that. And they basically said, Rick's going to be out for a while with his ACL repair. He can't do it. Do you want to do it? And I said, heck yeah. So they gave me a full-time job. And from March till August, I was doing the Mad Dog thing. I was on the road. And yeah, I sold tires and wheels at the ATV National Motocross Series. Met more of my quote unquote childhood heroes, like any of the ATV guys, a lot of people I had met at that first dealer expo. And I mean, this is 2011. So Can-Am and Yamaha were about the only two factories still involved.
Yeah.
At that point, because the 0809 like completely wrecked all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah. And what's amazing about that is I met Jeremiah Jones, he was a factory Suzuki guy. He got hurt in 2006 at Unadilla.
Yep.
And he and his then wife, they're not together anymore, but he and his then wife were like, you need to meet my sister-in-law, his wife's sister. And I was like, no, thanks. She's 5 years younger than me. I don't have luck with girls my own age. She's like 20 years old and in college. I live in California. No, thanks. And they insisted for months, and I tried getting them to leave me alone. And even longer story short, we got married, and they introduced me. We finally talked, and that was 12 years ago, and 10 years of marriage and 4 kids later. So literally the first conversation I ever had with Jeremiah, I parked the truck and trailer at his house in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And he wheels up to me in his chair, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Jeremiah Jones. And he goes, you need to meet my sister-in-law. You guys would be perfect for each other. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? Like, I meet this guy. I remember watching all the media stuff about when he got hurt from my dorm room in college. Like, I was following it all. And here I meet him for the first time, and he's like, you need to meet my sister-in-law. So
It's crazy. And you've like, from there, even like into the media side of things, like when it came to side by sides, um, probably what 2010 or so, like you were shooting literally everything, probably '09 even. Um, you were shooting everything to do with side by sides. I mean, I realize you were still probably doing quads too, but um, I don't remember what year it was, but Crowley, I think, I think the first time I met you was a photo shoot with Crowley on the Muzzy stuff back at '09, maybe 10.
I think it was Dave's first industry ride in Glamis, if I'm not mistaken. That would have been like February of
12.
no, I think you and I first met at Dune Fest.
Yeah, I think we met
Probably.
at Doomfest
I think
early, like 11, 10,
yeah,
11,
yeah, somewhere
something
in
like
there.
that. Yeah.
And then the first kind of deal I yeah, so we hung out there. Yeah, so there was somewhere in there. And then there was a in like February of 2011, Dave put on the first industry ride, like invite only industry ride, and I
Yep.
came out and I stayed with Crowley. And that was the first time I ever drove a side by side. He had an XP, couple of XP 900s.
Yep.
One had a big American flag, and I'd never driven one, and I went out and I was jumping it, and he told me later, like, I was very nervous with you jumping my XP. Um, but I had a ball, and yeah, and like you say, shooting everything, hindsight's always 2020. When I remember specifically, like at the works races back then, 2010-ish, like the side by sides were like it was like the special ed class. Like, okay,
Right.
we're gonna let these goofy Yamaha rhinos come out here. Like, hindsight's always 2020. If I had started, see, I even put on this. I don't know if you
I
can
see
read that.
It's
that
beautiful.
UTV
This is
bulletin
this is
shirt.
this and my Instagram account are all that remain from the UTV bulletin days.
Yeah.
But um, had I started this then,
Right.
like because you talk about grassroots, like UTV racing wasn't even a thing. Like, there was stuff that had happened, Dana Creech and Rhino Craft, and all of that was before that. But on the racing side, by the time 2012 rolled around, there's like 100 UTV entries that are works
Yeah.
racing stuff.
Yeah.
And so I would love to have gotten in doing that. But yeah, so shot lots of stuff. And so, what's funny too, I could actually find it on YouTube. Before Joey D
Yeah.
of UTV Underground fame, before him and Mad Media connected, he and I collaborated on a Coia Creek UTV works UTV race. And
Oh,
he
wow.
was he was like, dude, you're shooting this stuff for the ATVs. I have this website. Could you do a UTV video and I'll put it? And so I actually saw it. I stumbled upon it the other day. And it was because I was working for DWT. It was like a UTV Underground DWT works UTV race.
Wow.
Nice.
And so, like, I am a nobody. Like, the Martelli brothers are legit and real people. I've had some good conversations with Josh and Matt, and Josh actually kind of coached me through a pitch to a group about an off-road deal here a couple of years ago that I was involved with. So I am like no comparison. But I was doing video content with Joey before they all partnered. So that's just it's nothing, no comparison, but it's funny. It's like, just shows how far back all this has gone on. And
Yeah.
so I don't want them or anyone else to take that as like, I am not an OG. I am not anything. I had a Canon Power Shot like point and shoot camera. That's what I filmed that on. But Joey saw it. He loved the content. We did it, and it was sweet. So
And,
um
don't discredit yourself. I'm going to interrupt you because you are somebody in the industry even even if you feel like you're not involved in the industry, um, the industry itself would not be where it is now without you and the OGs like yourself. So don't sell yourself short, man. You are an OG for sure. Um, and you paid the dues for all these guys that go out and shoot stuff now, especially on the UTV side. Um, you did the grind, you paid the dues, you slept on cots in hotel rooms, air beds in hotel rooms, um, put up with a bunch of drunks at Doomfest. Um, like you did it all to open the door for the guys that are doing it now that are making a living at it. So don't ever sell yourself short. And anybody listening to this, props where props are due. I mean, Seth was dropping the hammer long before, probably before some of you guys were even born. So, you want to throw dukes, throw them at me.
Well, I appreciate that. Um, no, there have just been so many incredible memories and opportunities, and you know, like my little freestyle window was short, but even when Wes put on his little Legends race event a couple years ago,
Yeah,
like he personally reached out and said like, "Hey, I've got a spot for you, and you can race the go-kart race or whatever." Like he counted me as part of the fold with
sure.
with guys like Jeremiah and Dana and Shane Hitt and like all those guys, and I am eternally grateful to them and to BC specifically. Well, Justin Homan for giving me that first ramp, my buddy Todd for helping me build everything, guys like Jamie that shoveled sand and snow, but then Wes and BC for giving me that opportunity because and Jared Kelly that led to the whole media thing. Um, Crowley has in fact he hit me up the other day. I'm going to West Virginia with Kawasaki in 2 weeks to go ride their new Ridgeline,
Yeah,
and so
awesome.
it's been a long time, but like opportunities like that. Lucas Cooney from ATV.com and just so many people that have opened the doors. And Eli Madero. It's funny you say, involvement in things. At that event in Mesquite, Nevada, when I went to pick up that quad, Eli was there for ATV Rider or whoever he was shooting for at the time. And he walks up to me, he goes, "Geez, you are literally everywhere." And and I took that as a compliment, which I believe he meant it that way. But I tell that to other people as I talk about marketing or anything else. Like nowadays, like that's that's the goal.
Yes.
Like whether you're selling something or you're marketing or you're building a brand, that's the greatest compliment someone can give you is, geez, you show up literally everywhere. And so at that point, I was trying to sell myself as like an industry insider. Today, we would call that an influencer. I wasn't necessarily influencing and I didn't have a social following. But that's what I was trying to do was be an industry insider. And when he said like, "You're everywhere," I was like, wow, it's paying off. Now I'm still like living off $300 a month, but
Right.
but I was making do, and that old truck was still running, and and yeah, so it's wild.
Dude, what a history. Like, holy cow. I mean, and we haven't even touched on some of the current stuff. Um, that you're still doing some stuff. Your kids are now riding, which is super, super rad. My kids grew up riding, and one of them stayed with it for quite a while till she had kids. But and now this whole like companies are bringing you to the concrete expo to film stuff happening at their booth. I mean, it's it's just so uh I don't even know how to explain it. Like it's blown up so much and it's rad, dude. I mean, you know, um, it's really rad. I love watching all your social media stuff. Um, One of the coolest videos, for those of you who haven't seen it, you're on Instagram at Construction Video Pros, right?
Yes, that's my company Instagram. Mhm.
Yeah. So if you go to that and look back through some videos, there's one of a demolition, I think, or blasting. You're blasting something, blasting a road out or something. And dude, that was so cool and so creative. Like, holy cow.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, the so that's what I'm doing now is like all of like everything begets everything. And so the media, the video, the content creation has just steamrolled into I was working for JRI Shocks, a shock company back here.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I made the transition out here. I worked for them for about 2 years and then decided to go out on my own and start a marketing business, which actually technically my company is called Heightened Creative.
Right.
Um, and I was doing anything and everything for anyone that would pay me anything. I would actually tell people those first couple of years I was running a nonprofit, unintentionally, but it was a nonprofit.
I feel that.
Um, and yeah, right. It's kind of like running a podcast.
Yes.
But but I pivoted about 5 years ago. This underground utilities company contacted me, said, "Hey, we need a website, but we also need all the content with it. Like, can you do that?" And I was like, "Sure." So I did. I was going to their job sites and putting cameras on underground pipe and stuff. And after that, I just realized, like, man, there's such an opportunity. There's like the construction world's like 30 years behind on any sort of marketing. And it was a hard slug. Like the first 2 or 3 years was cold calling and trying to sell people on something that not only do they not want, none of them have ever heard of it or considered it. And and it was hard, but I eked it out. I rebranded as Construction Video Pros so that it was a little more obvious what I was doing. Heightened Creative doesn't mean much to a 60-year-old business guy that doesn't believe in digital content, but at least Construction Video Pros kind of tells the tale. Um, and so that's where that name came from. I don't actually really like it now, but I'm 5 years into that brand. So, um, and it's just steamrolled. So yeah, and what it's done is it has given me such an insane inside look at the trades and construction and the things that go on to make everyday life possible for the rest of us. Last Monday, I was in the basement of a dam that was built in 1920, filming a client of mine using a robotic hydro demolition robot to demo concrete so that this other company can upfit that dam to continue supplying the Raleigh Durham area with water.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
like somebody made the comment to me, like, did you ever think about like what happened if that dam gave way? And I was like, as I'm in the basement standing in water, think like it was better to not think about what's on the other side of that wall. But like it's a hydro demo robot, like, and that's insane and so cool. And all of that is just to get people fresh drinking water. The blasting video you used, like I just did a project for the South Carolina Aggregates Association where I just filmed in quarries where they blow up granite rock and then earth movers that are bigger than my house like load it and haul it up and they dump it in a crusher and that becomes the foundation of your house or the next road you'll drive on or like anything that has concrete in it has rock in it, like, and everything has concrete, every structure, every bridge, every road, hospital, school. And so that the construction world is astounding. And getting to do things like the or that dam project or a bridge project, or I have a asphalt paving client, um it's just astounding to see, and it's cool stuff.
It is.
Absolutely.
So I'm working hard. That's the problem right now is depends on who you ask, they'll give you different statistics, but pretty much like 40% of the construction workforce is going to retire in the next 6 to 10 years. And what do we do about that? And so trying to make the construction world appeal to young people and help them see the incredible opportunities that exist for laborers, welders, pipe fitters, equipment operators, like you name it. And so that's everybody's challenge right now is they've got plenty of work. It's they need people, and content plays a great role in trying to help recruit and attract talent. So I spend a lot of time on job sites and trying to put plans together to help people solve the workforce problem or attract talent or make themselves look better online so that people that find them are like, wow, this is a rad company that actually cares about their people, or it's a great place for women to work or whatever, and help fill that pipeline.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm I've seen a lot of your work, and obviously I've seen your work from, back when before I even started with doing product testing for Muzzy back in '07. Um, I'd seen your work in magazine before that. So, um, dude, it's like, and now here we are watching this ultra cool video stuff in construction. Like, I don't know, Cole. I mean, I would say he's made everything exciting from like, quad freestyles to rhinos and Terexes to, you know, hydro demolition robots or whatever that thing was.
Yeah, it's the most unconventional path, but you look at it and you're like, oh, there's a reason that God put every single one of these events in my life leading up to where I am now and to where I'm going. So
Yeah.
it's very evident in your work. Absolutely.
Amen. Absolutely. I believe that. Yeah.
I appreciate that, and what's funny, like a small tidbit, like for that concrete demo company that I'm working with, that's the client, their general manager grew up racing amateurs with like Cooper Webb and some of the today's top MX guys. And so
Yeah.
he's running a business and has kids and family and everything now. So he doesn't get to do this. His name's DJ Conlon, but he was an amateur motocross dude that was actually legit. And so it's just like, wow, I still get little snippets of the industry in different places. And like you mentioned, my kids, when I moved into this house 3 years ago, I was shortly then after walking around the neighborhood, and this guy moved in, and we get to talking, and he's the marketing manager for Boyce and Reed valves, like Boyce and Reed's that
Oh,
does
yeah. Yeah.
like he's their marketing guy. He had just
Wow.
moved down here from Pennsylvania. And he starts buying bikes and stuff, and he's like, hey, you want to go ride? I got a demo YZ125. And last fall I went out to a local MX track that does like Wednesday night open practice, and I thrashed on a little YZ125. I have never ridden a dirt bike on a track. I haven't like, other than just like putzing around for a minute, I haven't ridden a dirt bike in 20 years. And this is telling of the season of life I'm in. I just got a text from my wife saying, your youngest daughter is going to be crying it out, so you'll probably hear it. So we have a 14-month-old who's resisting sleep. So this is part of the real raw Seth is crying baby in the background.
That's all part of it.
It's beautiful.
So
Yep.
at least I don't have to change a diaper, hopefully, right now. But yeah, so he invited me out, and I rode that bike, and I haven't, and like it was a blast. And one of the Hill brothers, Josh Hill or Justin Hill, one of them, he was out there that night riding one of the electric Stark Vargs. Like, it's crazy. Like why did he show up? And so we ended up going back, and we rented that track on Black Friday for like pennies, a group of us. And I'm now blessed to be getting back into riding and some moto, and my kids are in it.
That's
We've got-
That's
amazing.
awesome.
We got 2 quads and a little CRF 50.
Oh, cool.
And my son comes home from school and just, can I ride? And I'm like, yes, you can.
You're going to be one of the last good dads that's putting the kids on the bikes instead of in front of the computer screen.
I'll tell you, I appreciate that. I just wrote a lengthy article. I'm trying to figure out what to do with it and where to put it. But I'm doing a lot more writing personally now on I'd say things that matter, things that are important, whether it's personal development or just stuff. And I wrote an article on that very subject, talking about how on Facebook Marketplace, you see a ton of CRF 50s with the tag that says bought it for my kids and they have no interest. And where the thought came from was I started my kids on a quad because when you get on a dirt bike, there's a lot new. There's shifting, there's a twist throttle, which is hard to figure out. And then the whole keeping it on 2 wheels thing. Well, if you start them on a 4-wheeler, at least they're not going to fall over. And so they're less inclined to get freaked out. And the reality is it takes practice. It takes work. Even with my kids riding the 4-wheeler, when I put them on the dirt bike, they were squirrely.
Mhm.
And my daughter was a little less willing to work at it. She's doing good now, but she wanted it to come easy.
Right.
And we as a society want things to come easy. And for these kids who think, yeah, let's get a dirt bike, Dad, when it's not easy, they'll go back in and plug into the device and ride it on a screen. And they'll miss out on the experience that is the real thing. And then that translates to every other area of life where we're looking for the easy way out. Anything that is hard is bad. And we trade genuine, authentic experiences like the feel of a throttle, the wind in your hair, riding at a track, smelling the exhaust, having fun with friends for a stupid computer game and a screen. And there's no comparison.
Right. I agree. And for those people who say they want to do the easy thing, the easy thing isn't necessarily the right thing or the best thing. And I've always, I found this quote years ago. It was like, I know I must be doing things right because the path got real hard,
Yeah.
but your entire life from when you started riding quads at 3 years old or bikes or whatever it was to now where you're, the probably the leader in construction video marketing in the US.
Well, I appreciate that is not true, but thank you.
Not one part of it though has come easy, right?
No,
You've
that
put
is
in the
for
work.
sure.
I mean, you didn't click on a few pictures on Instagram and make a dumb video and all of a sudden, you're one of the leading guys in construction video. No, you worked your butt off to get there. And that's a good example. It's a good example for anybody that knows you, anybody that's listening to this, and anybody that's out there and sees your cool video of like aggregate getting the shit blown out of it with dynamite. Good Lord, it's awesome, but it didn't come without giving
scars.
everything up and moving into your truck and splitting your head open and breaking your skull. And I mean, and people need to realize, and I think the more that we advocate, get out and ride and get out and do something, I think hopefully the more people your age and Cole's age that have kids, or people my age that now have grandkids, will push those little ones to get out and ride, get out and do something. Don't sit in front of the TV watching Blue's Clues. No offense to Blue's Clues, just saying.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And it's easy to say, it's hard to do
Amen.
because when you have a melting down 5-year-old, it's easiest to just give them a device or it's
Right.
easiest to just appease them. And I don't want to get on a parenting rant because I'm a very, very imperfect parent, but I'm a firm believer that as the parent, you have the right and the responsibility to be the parent. And
Yeah.
that's the problem in our society is we're too concerned with being everyone's friend
Right.
and making our kids happy. And what that's translated to is anything again that is hard is bad. Anything that creates conflict, you need to be avoided. And I deserve a life that is easy. And we've unintentionally created a society that believes that. And we punt to devices as babysitters because mom and dad need a few minutes to themselves. And and yeah, and it just segues. And
Yeah.
and it's yeah, we know, you hear it over and over. Nobody wants to work. What's nobody wants to work because they've never had to.
Yeah.
Like I mowed lawns at 10 years old to make money to buy four-wheeler parts. And I know I sound like a 60-year-old curmudgeon when I say that, but that's the fact of the matter is like,
Yeah.
and
No, I agree.
parents have unintentionally created the problem that we're in because they had the discretionary income to make life easy for their kids and buy them cars and then send them off to college with a credit card or whatever. And just mom and dad will handle it. And consequently, they never learn to work and they don't want to. And there are a lot bigger problems, but that's kind of the core foundation, I believe, under it. And
Yep. Dude, I packed bundles of shingles up to the second floor, up to the roof of houses, to pay off my first motorcycle that I owned. So I
yes,
get it, and
yes,
I was 10 or 11.
yeah, right.
So, and I
Before,
know Cole has the same type of story.
Well, I was a little bit luckier because we always had motorcycles in the family, but you had to have good grades. That was the busting your butt part was like,
go
hey,
mom and dad.
like if you're sucking, there's going to be no fuel in those bikes. So, but Seth, to compound on your point and kind of take it a little bit away from parenting, something that really struck me emotionally about what you're saying is you are the reason that I even have and had Premix podcast. If you remember, you were the guy that got me the domain and got me going. So this is actually a funny, quick story, but I have the human condition of 10 million ideas and no execution, right? And so one day I'm
We all
telling
do.
Uncle Sethro about this, and I'm like, oh, I want to do this podcast, and I kind of want to explain like behind the scenes what it takes to go racing and all this stuff. And Seth, you go, okay. Next thing I know, he goes, here's your website domain. Here's all the stuff you need. Now go. And I'm like, uh-oh, now it's real. Now I have to work for it. It's not just an idea anymore. And that's because of Seth. So, and that was even well before you're a parent. You already had that intuition of like, all right, well, enough talk, do something.
Here's
Oh,
the
that's
tools, do the
hysterical.
job. That's awesome. And we're proudly partnered with the Premix podcast, which is, made its way into a desert racing media source. And also the as you've witnessed, Mr. Farrell is quite gifted behind a microphone at events. And so it has now made its way into MC and event announcing and race announcing. So
Well, that all
That's
comes back to UTV Invasion, where the three of us were at.
yeah.
So
Oh
talk
my
yes,
about
gosh.
just everything coming full circle.
We're gonna need to talk for like 10 more hours. We haven't even touched on UTV invasion. Holy
I
cow.
know we haven't even broken to the
yeah,
second half of the late 2000s.
We're
So
gonna have to have
right.
I know, right? We're gonna need like
We're
at least four more episodes of
yes,
this.
yes, please.
yeah, we definitely have to get another episode. I know we're pushing on time for you right now. Um, and so I think we need to start wrapping this up, but let's plan another episode really soon because we haven't talked about invasion.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
we haven't talked about how many times you have shot me in a car and I had
made Cole crap his pants in the
yeah,
passenger seat.
Oh, I trusted you. Stop it.
you know, and we still haven't got into the real nitty gritty cool stuff of where you're at now. So, but at this point, I think this is, we're gonna call it what do we call it? Seth Fargher Part 1.
Yep.
I
'Cause
love it. And
that'll keep some accountability to come back.
there you go. Hey, I love it. And it was a perfect explanation. Again, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but my 14-month-old Ruth is crying in the background. So
I actually can't, but I don't have my monitor set that loud. So, um, so
well,
yeah,
it's been a blast chatting with you guys. Thank you for the opportunity to relive some of the glory moments, because man, it it's been sweet. And again, it's insane to think about how much life was lived in a short period of time, and experiences and people, and you guys are both part of that. So thank you for that.
well, thank you. And it's been absolute honor to have you on the show. We are doing this again, undoubtedly. Um, Cole, what you got?
Man, I got to let you go because I know it's getting late out there in NASCAR country. Um, but just so you know, when they make your autobiographical film, I already have the plot placed out where we're going to have your truck break down somewhere off Winchester. So I'll help out with that production. I got your back.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's rad. And Seth, thank you so much. Man, what a trip. I don't even want to stop. Like, I know we have to, but I don't want to, you know. It's like sitting around a campfire with our feet up, you know. I just love you to death, brother. And, you know, so before you go, I just got a hit on this blue collar blend harvest coffee. Uncle Seth's own proprietary blend of coffee from a great company. And we don't have a ton of time. Give them a shout out and tell people where to buy it before we have to kick you out and make you go take care of crying baby.
So yeah, I appreciate that. So I wanted to do something nice for my clients this year around the holidays. And I have a good friend named Toby Foreman, who is, I call him the Don of coffee. He's been in coffee for 30 years. And he also has a heart for individuals with special needs. He has a son with Down syndrome. And so Harvest Coffee is a roasting company that employs individuals with various disabilities. And they roast the coffee, they package the coffee, they fold the labels, they sign the bags. Like, he's doing unbelievable things with his company. And so I was able to essentially private label my own bag that was the Construction Video Pros, like, blue collar blend, sort of a nod, paying homage to the hardworking individuals in the construction industry. And yeah, I did that. So I don't sell it. I bought a bunch, and Toby keeps me well stocked to give out as gifts and share with people.
Awesome.
And I actually have had other clients that have spun off. I have an asphalt paving client that loved it so much we made their own for their team.
Oh,
And
cool.
they and we put an awesome photo of an asphalt mill that grinds asphalt, and theirs called The Grind, a coffee that works as hard as you do. And
Oh, I love it.
they passed out 450 bags of their coffee to their employees and customers. And so yeah, Harvest Coffee Company, HAERFEST, Harvest Coffee Company. It's pronounced Harvest, but in Davidson, North Carolina. And you can private label your own stuff. You can do something meaningful or impactful. Toby will work with you on stuff. And I was there today. I went there just to meet a buddy, and to talk through some business stuff. And Toby walks around the corner with this high octane, perfectly fluffed cup of heavenly goodness, and was like, "Here, I made this for you." And I was like, gosh, I love you, man.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
And they're doing incredible.
Everyone needs a friend like that.
Right. It's amazing. And he's got an incredible story. He was actually a Major League Baseball player in a former life.
Wow.
And so, but he's just him and his wife open their place up to me. I have a group of dads from my son does trail life. It's like a faith-based scouting version of the scouts.
Hmm.
And I got a group of dads just meeting to get together and get to know each other and hang out. And we're doing it at their place tomorrow night. And they're like, game on, open it up, use our facility for whatever you want. So I'm taking them up on it, and it's great coffee. Yeah, you can look for them at Harvest Coffee Roasting. And yeah,
That's
very cool.
awesome.
Thanks for giving them a shout out because they're doing
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I love their mission. And I when you sent me that coffee for Christmas, um, I've been shouting it out, I think, almost every show.
That's
So,
awesome.
and it's good. It's
It
good.
is.
So one of the things that really hit me is as you were talking and as we're talking and you're giving some of the early year stories. Um, you know, I really like if all of us could just take, couple of seconds of silence for like, you know, Caleb, all those greats that have really given all the ultimate sacrifice to entertain us, if you will. And I'd like to just take a quick moment of silence. If you're a praying person, say a prayer of thankfulness that we can do this and you can listen to us. So let's just chill for just a second here. Amen. Seth,
Well,
what do you got? Closing comments.
I just I appreciate you guys. At the end of the day, the off-road, the moto community, everything else is about people, and it's unlike any other community of people, I would say, anywhere. When we rented that track for the second time, it's a family from New Zealand. And I just told him how awesome I think their track is and what they do. And he just said, man, there's something about the moto community. I
Yep.
can't explain it. I don't know what it is. And it's great for the people that have made money, the people that have won races and whatever. Honestly, I don't think those people actually ever get it. In fact, I know they don't. Because when I was at the track selling tires, kids would come over to like top level racers would come over to get their tires or wheels. They're just like, man, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And I'm like, do you ever ride for fun? You ever been to the
Yeah.
dunes? You ever just go out and ride trails? Like they have no frame of reference for it because it's just ride, train, work. And it's like,
Yeah.
man, none of us, like I don't make my living riding anymore. Cole, I don't know what you're doing with your real job, but I'm betting it's not riding. Mad
Life
Dog,
insurance.
yes. Look at us adulting
The
here.
check's clear. That's what's
Right.
important.
That's what's
Well,
important. Mad Dog, you're still on the road hustling for kicker, and that's awesome.
yeah.
But it's like the stories, the relationships, bench racing, like that stuff is worth far more than I think than the guys that, they hit the top and they had a year or two there of making, geez, a couple $100,000 to ride or race or whatever. Cause those like, yeah, I could just keep going. Like
Yeah.
nothing is what it seems. Nothing is
Right.
as glamorous, but relationships and stuff. And that Crowley could call me up. I get a text. Hey, you want to go to Kawasaki Intro in Virginia? Yeah. And so,
Absolutely. And shout out to the Crow Dog. I know he doesn't listen, but whatever.
He's a busy man.
Yeah.
well, thank you, fellas. I appreciate the opportunity. Let's get part two
Yes,
on the
please.
books.
Yes, please.
Because yeah, I'd love to do some more bench racing and
For sure. And
fill in any holes. I'm sure we forgot some stories somewhere.
oh yeah, undoubtedly. And there's a lot of stuff we just flat miss. So but yeah, no, we appreciate your time tonight. Uncle Sethro, we love you, brother. Thank you so much for being coming along for the ride on the AFTR show.
Absolutely. Glad to be here, fellas.
Dude, thank you so much. We love you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, brother.
You bet.
Holy cow, man. So good.
Yeah.
I don't even know, like so good and so humble, so modest. Um, and he really has. I mean, you know, giving it all up to try freestyle, realizing that's not where he's at. Um, Doing a great reset, man. That and you know, there's so much more that we haven't even covered. I can't wait to get him back. Um, but we are on time for sure. So, and speaking of time, it's time for you to improve your crappy audio. Get up there, hit the web, kicker.com or Instagram at kicker audio for all your 12-volt needs and personal audio needs. Note they just released a True Wireless 2 fully wireless earbud. Cole loves his. I love mine. We can't use Cole's marketing slogan currently.
Yeah. We'll avoid
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
but hit them up. Check them out. Kicker.com or at Kicker Audio on Instagram. Every other Tuesday night, 7:30 Central, YouTube, Facebook Live, Kicker Unmasked Live. Of course, Bomber Eyewear, Bomber Safety Eyewear, Bomber Floating Eyewear. Man, truly, truly the blue jeans of shades, dude. Over 40 frames, over, I don't even know how many lens combos. Get them in polarized, get them in mirrored, get them in dark smoke, get them in slight tint, get them in amber shooting lenses, get them in safety lenses, and they float to top it all off.
And they just finished Dakar with Jamie Campbell. So I think they're
Yeah,
pretty good glasses.
that's right. BomberEyewear.com. Of course, the Premix podcast coming soon to a desert race near you. And if you need that sweet voice on the mic, man, slide into his DMs. That's the at symbol, ThePremixPodcast. Send him a message and get him booked before he's booked up. Our boy Cole, taking care of business. Of course, Kelsey Morrell Film. Find her on Insta at Kelsey Morrell Film. So thankful she is getting all of our YouTube and YouTube podcast videos ready. And we are going to start dropping next week. Of course, Hey Keeks Marketing, heykeeks.com on the web or on Instagram at Hey Keeks Marketing for all your website or social media needs. Look her up. Give her a shout. Hey Keeks, heykeeks.com. Cole, what do you got?
Make sure to rate, review, subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. Do it now.
That's beautiful, man. Hire that beautiful voice at the Premix podcast. We're going to have, it sounds like an after show coming up with some pre-comments from Seth Fargher and probably another after show with some rap on Prescott Valley Kicker AMA Pro Arena Cross Championship Series. And we may wrap that into Reno. I'm in Reno right now. With that, folks, we'll see you next week. Mad Dog out.